Peasant Productions presents the math of ESP, why it works even if you don't believe in it. January 19th, the 57th day of my locking the police out, fighting. My hands are kind of here and there. Obviously, it's been the holidays and everything, so there's not a lot of reason for me to worry about trying to get some kind of message, I'm alive, I'm alive. Most of you are out partying and having fun. Family member that was actually considered my landlord, and watched him go through the antics of basically trying to play the dumb person who doesn't quite understand what's being asked of him. By far and away the best thing was to watch him go and specifically get yogurt that I told him not to, flavors that I told him I didn't want, in comparison to the little, kind of like a square quart plastic bottle of yogurt rather than the usual, what you would see of a round quart with the big lid on top. I've only got a small hole to get stuff in, so I had told him, don't get these round ones, and I held one up there and showed how it would not fit through the hole. And he brought, and I told him there's this other brand that is locally Mexican, Aldea, and they have 4 flavors that I like. Bring me those, bring me something of those 4 flavors, and I'll take 2 or 3 of them if you want to bring all 3 back, and I've got the money for it. No problem. I'll pay you for going and getting me this food. Well, he came back. He brought 2 containers, one of which was just plain bland yogurt. It was that particular brand, Aldea, but it was the big container that wouldn't fit through the hole. And needless to say, after he tried shoving it through at me several times, and I kept telling him, it's not going to work, I don't want a mess here, take it away. He did, in fact, actually squeeze on it hard enough to blow the yogurt into his face. So I had to step down away from my window and laugh slightly at that. The karma of, doing specifically something. I asked him to get me some beans, at normal prices that, the locals pay, and he went and got the most expensive bags of beans he could. I can't find this. And by far the best one of all is that, tortillas are a main part of the Mexican meal. He could never remember to bring me some tortillas. Hot, warm, fresh, semi-fresh tortillas, no. And so when his mother brought it at the end of the evening the other day, brought me a kilo, and they were ice cold. It was obvious. It was obvious they were left laying somewhere all day long, whether it was to be sold and didn't get sold out of the store or sitting in her house. It was obviously had been the last thing on their mind besides throwing it out for garbage was to go and take it to me. So I did get some tortillas finally, but needless to say, it's kind of funny to watch these people go through the routine. But I kind of have to also stop in the balancing understanding here is that you're dealing with a town that 1632 is when they performed this fake miracle circus act. This is 2019. We're talking about 13 years here away from being 400 years. And if we give a generation 50 years, you're still talking 8 generations of people who have known their lying, living a lie, preaching a lie, collecting money and doing anything that they feel like because they are taught that they are better than anybody and anything else. And in that sense, yes, I can understand why the spiritual beings that I discuss stuff with brought me here and put me in the situation where from day one here I have been around people who have constantly been trying to start a fight, constantly getting in front of me and making a big deal about how they're a big bad Mexican and they can kick my ass if they feel like it. And I'm a pacifist. I back down. I walk the other way. Whatever. It's not that hard to avoid ignorant people. But in one town where it is practically the sort of thing where I would expect to walk into one of these church schools and see them actually teaching that whole line of behavior to the people, okay? It is by far and away, it's quite disgusting, but you very quickly see why they call each other dog as a slur slang name. Hey, perro, what's going on? Buenas tardes, perro. The thing is that when you see that, Mexicans have been known to serve dog meat up in taco stands, and they don't treat their pets very good. If you look at the majority of animals around and the situations and all of that, it's pretty obvious that an animal's a beast of burden to them, and it's neither here nor there in comparison to any other place I've been in them actually loving their pets anymore. And I definitely know people who in other places are a lot closer to animals and the animals around them. But in dealing with the idea of 400 years of living a lie, teaching a lie, never dealing with honest people other than to try and steal from them. Your church teaching you never to read the Bible, so you are constantly disrespectful of the very premise that is inside that book. The Jews are the ones that had Moses and the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments are still part of that Bible. They are still part of what is going on in the New Testament, the stuff that the Jesus Christ type of person was supposed to be saying. So to be going out and killing people for their shoes or their money or their land or their oil is extremely vile to the idea of any kind of Christ entity. Very, very disrespectful that you think that there is some reason why you should be better than other people and go out and do this. But needless to say, you see it all the time. And in the United States, right now especially, I'm finding it almost overly amusing how fast people run away when I do this. It's almost as good as Revelation 2:17, people diving in the hole and running away. And I'm pointing out that because I became very, basically very interested in the environment and what was going on around it in the 60s, I'm aware that SO2, sulfuric dioxide emissions from coal burning, diesel power plants, jet engines, diesel trucks, various things, stuff like that, and other fuels that have, sulfur in it, okay, which includes gasoline too. That the SO2 is the more dangerous component of the greenhouse gases because it does not just filter out like CO2 does with, a few trees and that's that. And yet everybody, when they started screaming in 1970 because the United States became the petrodollar and everything depended on continuous sales of big oil production, going out there and digging it up, having wars literally over oil so that they have machinery and all kinds of stuff. And if you think about your football games and you apply it to the oil wars, you'll see there's an extreme similarity between them. Yeah, they're out there doing all kinds of devious things, but they got everybody to believe in CO2, carbon dioxide. Stop and ask yourself, when's the last time you heard any politician talking about putting a carbon tax on Coca-Cola or Pepsi or Shasta or seltzers and soda waters, you know, and stuff like this. It's like, oops, that's carbonated beverages with CO2 gas, which means the production of that stuff needs CO2. The production of that releases CO2. The packaging releases CO2. The unpackaging, popping a bottle open and popping a can open, or going to the soda fountain and making yourself a big 32-ounce, big gulp, is releasing all kinds of CO2 gas in the air. Do you have a beer? No problem. Same thing. You've got CO2 gas in there. Champagne, CO2 gas in there. And there's also a product called dry ice, which is used enormously throughout all of the basic food industry alone, not to mention your cryogenics places, which is frozen liquid CO2. It is so condensed that it turns into ice. It is so cold, it's extremely cold. But it is simply a release of CO2 gas. And nobody stops to ever think about the fact that, Coca-Cola alone serves 1.7 billion drinks a day. If the average drink is a 16-ounce cup, that's 500 million gallons of CO2 gas released. Add Pepsi in there, add Shasta and Fanta and all these other things, add all the beer in there, add a few bottles of champagne for somebody celebrating or launching a boat and smacking a bottle on the bow. Yeah, you end up having a humongous release of CO2 gas. And you folks, oh, no, this stuff doesn't exist. It's all fake. It's called PC, politically correct. The politicians who lie, cheat, and steal from you are telling you what's correct to believe, and you're basically saying, yes, my religion tells me not to question, I must obey. Blind faith. So you see why it's so very hard for this family to even begin to consider acting decent at having been caught at every single little thing that they've done wrong, to the point of exposing the fact that, hey, look, you haven't even been, honest to the people. Your entire income is based off of lies for 400 years. They can't even accept that. In the Bible there, one of those passages in there, I think it's John 15:25 it is, where Christ talks about the fact that he's going to, and it's in red, I'll go ahead and throw it into the video here. He talks about how, you got to accept the fact that I'm here, and then you got to accept the fact that I'm going to send you a counselor of truth, and you have to accept these people, or you don't accept me, and you don't accept my Father. So you have, 2 or 3 different levels, and you have to accept who the Holy Spirit's going to send to you, and you have to accept the gifts that the Holy Spirit gives to people. And you don't have the right to say no, because then you committed blasphemy against the Holy Spirit, you've committed blasphemy against Christ, and you've committed blasphemy at least against the Father of Christ. So there's quite a bit of interest there in the idea, but yeah. 1732 they got officially decreed by the Vatican itself. And chances are that, all the witnesses were dead, and this place had been producing enough money that the Vatican said, we want you on our team, so you're now an officially accepted miracle, because you can bring in, hundreds of thousands of pesos a day or whatever. Yep. So anyway, happy whatever, I'm still alive, I'm still kicking. And we got a blood moon, full moon coming up in a couple of days here. It's going to be an eclipse. And as a lone wolf, I'm gonna be howling from a starship, I'm sure, because I sure as heck don't want to be here.